Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jules Onuk, and hi, welcome back to True Crime Jules. If this is the first time, thank you so much for stopping by. I really do appreciate you clicking on this video. It really means a lot to me. So guys, today we're actually going to talk about Richard Ramirez. So I'm going to talk about that case while I do my makeup at the same time. This is my third time recording this case. I recorded it twice. First time I was going out, so it looks like I was in a hurry while recording. And the second time, it was at night, and I didn't like how the artificial lights looked because it looked so dark, even with artificial lights, which I don't know why. So today, I'm actually working from home, and since I have less things to do in regards to work, I am going to record while I do my makeup at the same time. Let's just get right into this video. So before we start, I just want to give a little trigger warning. So this video contains adult dialogue that may not be suited for all audiences. This case talks about sexual assault, necrophilia, mutilation, assault of children, murder, and basically almost all the bad stuff. We're talking about Richard Ramirez. This case has been on my list for a long time, but I was like, it's so popular, should I still talk about it? It's getting to 3 months in I prepared this case, so it's just time for me to let it all out. So let's just get right into this video. So Richard was born on February 29th, 1960, and he grew up in El Paso, Texas. He had 4 other siblings. He had both of his parents. His dad was described as a very hardworking man, but even though his dad was described as a hardworking man who did all he could to make sure that his children had the best life possible, his dad was also known to be a very aggressive man. Not only was he known to be aggressive, was also known to be very quick to anger. Apart from that, he would also transfer this anger to his wife and his children. There was just tension everywhere when it came to Richard, his dad, his mom, and his siblings. It was said that when Richard was young, he was hit twice in the head. One was by a piece of furniture, and then a second time was in school with a swing. He was hit by a swing. And when he was hit by a swing, it was after this incident that it was alleged that from here on, he started having seizures. So if you're into true crime, or if you know like a bit about true crime, you know that like some serial killers, actually most serial killers, they've always been associated in conjunction with having head injuries as a child. So we know that this is a case of their frontal lobe, because as a child, when you're being born, your frontal lobe is literally developing as you're growing older. Frontal lobe is what actually determines you from knowing the difference between good and bad, wrong and right. It's basically your sense of reasoning. So as a child, if you have like head injury and maybe it happens that you destroyed your frontal lobe, or you hit your head and then your frontal lobe was destroyed or cracked or something like that, there's a tendency that growing up you may be seen as a sociopath. Is it sociopath? You'll be seen as a sociopath, a psychopath, or yeah. So basically, I don't know if it happens in all cases, and I don't also know if this was the same case with Richard Ramirez. So depending on the source, when Richard was around 10 to 12 years old, he was hanging out with an older cousin. So his cousin was a veteran and he fought in the Vietnam War. Richard was very close to his cousin. As a child, obviously, Richard is like 10 to 12 years old, and he, at this point, does not even know the difference between, I would say he doesn't know the difference between good or bad, but like, let's just look at it like his dad is aggressive, and then when he's 12 years, he's just very close to his cousin, and his cousin just came back from war. And when his cousin just came back from war, his cousin is showing him like all these pictures of women that his cousin had killed during the war. He actually raped these women, he mutilated the body. So he was showing Richard a picture of all this that he had done. Richard is like 10 to 12, and to him, even though between you and I, we know that, okay, this is not normal, this is not a good thing. Like, even dead bodies are not even shown like that on the internet. And as that, when Richard saw these pictures, he saw all this to be cool. So now we're going to talk about Richard's first brush with murder. So on the 4th of May 1973, Richard was at his cousin's house when the cousin shot the wife during an argument that they had. After this, Richard's cousin, I'm suspecting that it will be Mike. Yeah, it was his cousin Mike. So Richard's cousin, he got arrested by the police, but then again, he was found not guilty due to insanity. So I think he spent like 4 years in the state mental facility. So it was not long after this that Richard moved in with his sister. His sister at this time was married. So when Richard moved in with his sister, he was basically staying with his sister, her husband, and yeah, basically his sister and the husband. I don't know what to say. So I was literally staying with his sister and the husband. So this part is a part that kind of took me out because I'm like, okay, you're staying with your sister and the husband. Well, Richard, he was still a young boy. He was not old at this time. And I think maybe, let's say he was 14. I'm not really sure about how old he was at that time. But he was a teenager at this time. So he came to live with his sister and her husband. But the thing that baffled me is that his sister's husband, that's his brother-in-law, took him to spy on women. And these women were either like changing their clothes or taking a shower, or like he would just take him to spy on naked women. And I'm like, I really don't understand, because it's different if I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I feel like, first of all, for you to do that shows you don't have respect for your wife. Who's that? For you to do that shows you don't have respect for your wife. But for you to involve your wife's brother, how? Like, how did the conversation even start? I would like to know how the conversation even started, that you felt it comfortable to go with your brother-in-law to spy on naked women. Like, how did the conversation come to light? How did it even start? Like, what was the thought behind it? It's different. I'm not saying it's good, but like, I thought it would have been different if the brother-in-law went first of all with his friends instead of Richard. Richard, as a teenager, he began having violent sexual fantasies. These fantasies that he had soon became like a very, very huge problem. So when Richard was, I think, in his 9th grade or before his 9th grade, he actually worked at a hotel. And when he worked at a hotel, because you guys know hotel staffs, they have like a master key, or they have access to all the keys in that particular hotel. So Richard was not an exemption. So when Richard was working one day, not even one day, like most times when he's working, what he would do is, when the customers that stayed in the hotel, like maybe they went out to like grab something from the restaurant or the supermarket, or like they wanted to just step out of their room, what Richard would do would be, he would go inside and steal their belongings. So this day, a man stepped out of the hotel, and his wife was inside the hotel room. So what Richard did at this time, he went inside the hotel room and he saw the woman, he saw his wife, and then he went and raped the woman. So as he was raping the woman, thankfully the man came in, and the man fought Richard off, like he fought him off. Yeah. He punched Richard. This case was taken to the police, but the victim and her husband, they did not testify against Richard because they were out of town. They stayed out of town. And to them, it was going to be very long. It would be a long process for them to come back into town and defend themselves, or be witnesses to the case. So obviously, this case it was not taken up further, which I think that sometimes, like in cases like this, is it just me? I feel like in cases like this, they should still do something. Like the law should still do something, because then again, minus the fact that maybe she was out of town, there's some people that may not want to testify because they don't want to relive that moment. So it's just sad, because I feel like even in today, if somebody does not want to like give a testimony, they just close the case. In cases like this, I don't think that should be the case. But anyway, some prosecutors, they always take it up, but some, they just let it die like that. And in this case, that was what it was. So that's how the case died in this case. But Richard was not let go like that. The hotel where he worked in, they actually sacked him. And I don't know, they just sacked him, and that was about it. So I feel like that was the only repercussion that he took, and that was his only fate. And to be fair, that's nothing in my own opinion. Anyways, after this, in his 9th grade, that was when he dropped out of school. So like I said, Richard dropped out in the 9th grade, and after this, like literally not much has been known about Richard till when he turned 22 years. And when he turned 22 years, that was when he moved from Texas to South California. Sorry, to San Francisco in California. I said South California. I said like South California. That's why he moved from Texas to San Francisco in California. So now I'm going to talk about the remaining victims of the Night Stalker. So on April 10th, 1984, Richard Ramirez, he had actually killed a 9-year-old girl. And at this time, he was staying in a hotel when he killed this girl. And when he killed her, he beat her up, after which he stabbed her to death. And all this happened in the hotel basement. He saw her and then he raped her and he stabbed her to death in the basement. After which, as if this was not bad enough, he actually hung her body from the pipes when he had finished what he did with the girl. So this crime actually went unsolved until 2009 because DNA evidence actually put him in the scene of the crime. Guys, if you can hear construction noise, I'm really sorry. After this, in March of 1985, Richard actually attacked a 22-year-old girl and her name was Maria. So Richard actually ambushed her when she was getting out of her car. He pulled out a gun and then he shot her in the face, and she was holding her key when he shot her. So when he shot her, she was trying to defend herself, and due to this, the bullet hit the key, and that's how she survived. Anyways, according to Richard, not according to me, on Richard's part, Richard actually thought that she was dead. So he went into her house and she had a roommate called Dale. So Dell heard this altercation and she heard this commotion and she went to hide. So she went to the kitchen to hide. So she was hiding at the countertop in the kitchen. So when she lifted up her head to see if everything was okay and if the perpetrator had gone, it was the same time when I think Richard came into the kitchen. And Richard now saw her inside the kitchen. And once Richard saw her, he just shot her head and she just died instantly. After this, Richard left the scene and then he attempted to steal a car from a woman named Veronica, and Veronica was just sitting there inside her car. So he tried to pull her out. I think she kind of resisted, and because of this, he just shot her twice and then he ran away. So he ran away less than an hour after he had shot Maria and Dale. On 17th of March 1985, Richard broke into a house with an elderly couple. So an elderly couple, they actually stayed in this house and their names were Vincent and Maxine. And this was like around 2 a.m. So obviously at this time, they were actually sleeping. This is like literally one of my worst nightmares. I don't want to say, like, your home is your safe place. Like, your home is your safe space. And imagine you're sleeping and somebody just breaks into your house while you're sleeping. That is literally so scary. Like, Richard broke into the house like around 2 a.m. And when he broke into the house, obviously Maxine and Vincent, they were sleeping. So he shot Vincent and this woke Maxine up. And then when she woke up, he climbed on top of her. He bound her hands. He asked her where the valuables in the house were. And I guess she told him where the valuables were. And then he started like going around the house. And she was like, okay, while she was being bound, she was able to free herself from the ties that Richard had bound her with. And that's when she remembered that she had like a shotgun under her bed. So she makes her way, she puts her hand under the bed, she gets the shotgun. And then Richard at this point had left the room. He had gone out of the room, was checking like around the house. So when once Richard came into the room, she pointed the shotgun at him to shoot him. Guys, I feel like this place has so much space. And she was about to pull the trigger. That's when she found out that the gun was not loaded. And as a result of this, Richard was so enraged. He was so angry. And then he shot her. I think he shot her like 3 times. After he shot her, he removed her eyes. He gouged her eyes out. And then he put her eyes in the jewelry box. I don't know if he got the jewelry box from her house or if he came with a jewelry box. So he put her eyes in the jewelry box and then he took it with him, I guess as a trophy, and he left the scene. Oh my days. But the thing about this crime scene was that Richard was actually not careful with this crime scene. I guess maybe his previous crimes he was careful, but this one in particular, he was not careful. He left his bullet casings everywhere, and then he left his footprints also in blood because obviously everywhere was bloody, I guess. So he left his footprints and he just walked away. So he did not bother to clean up his mess or clean up the crime scene. And when police actually came to the crime, they were able to take a picture of his footprint and take a measurement and all those things. So they were used as the evidence later on in the case. On May 14th, 1955, Richard actually entered the home of a man called Bill and his wife called Lillian. So at this time, Lillian was disabled. So Richard walked into the bedroom where he found Bill. And at this time, Bill just recognized him as a threat. So he quickly wanted to bring, I guess maybe his gun was in his pocket, I don't know. And then he attempted to quickly bring out his gun and shoot Richard, but he was not quick enough. So at this point, Richard just shot him first, and that's how Bill died. So after Bill died, Richard tied up Lillian, and then he raped Lillian. And when he raped Lillian, I don't think he killed Lillian. I think he left her. I don't think he did anything to Lillian. So roughly 2 weeks later, Richard, in this case, you're going to find out that Richard just loved stealing cars. He loved stealing cars. Anyways, roughly 2 weeks later, Richard stole another car. When he stole this car, he drove into another woman's house. So this woman, her name is Mabel, and she was living with her sister, Florence. So Richard went straight to the kitchen, and here he grabbed a hammer and he beat Florence with it so bad. He tied Mabel up, and then he also beat Mabel. And then he now found an electric cord. And with this cord, he shocked the girls. And when he shocked the girls, he raped Florence. After this, he grabbed a random lipstick. I'm guessing maybe he saw the lipstick in their house, obviously, because I don't think he was a cross-dresser. I don't think he would. I don't know, except maybe it's part of the trophies that he took, but he grabbed a random lipstick that he had found, and then he drew a pentagram on Mabel's tie, and then he also drew a pentagram on the walls in the house. And the thing is, he did not kill these women because both women, they were actually found alive in the house 2 days later. You guys can imagine the stress, the pain these women went through for 2 whole days. And this was 1955. There was nothing like mobile phones. And I don't know about maybe they had 9-9, but obviously they were electrocuted. And sometimes not many people live through electrocution. It's just so scary, and I'm glad that the 2 women, they were able to live through this. But only God knows the psychological turmoil these women may have gone through. Not long after, Richard beat a woman, and her name was Joyce. So basically, he kicked her in the head multiple times till she actually died. And it was after this crime that Richard was like, you know what? I need to get a better weapon. I need to get better weapons to execute this work very well. And guess what he got? He got a machete. Yes, you guys, I am so in shock. He decided, I need to get a better weapon. And his definition of a better weapon was a machete. How? Some people, I'm not saying you should do this, but some people, better weapons to them may be maybe a gun, a silencer, a revolver. But a machete, that means after you kill them, you could mutilate them, because I don't see a machete being a better weapon. There's no better weapon, actually. You have no right to be taking somebody's life. Anyways, after this, on June 20th, 1985, he got into another house, and the owner of this house was Max and Layla. So he killed them both with his new machete. He robbed their house after, and he took everything of value. So later that night, Richard broke into the home of China Rong and Song Kid. So he shot the wife, and this killed him instantly, killed him immediately. After this, he tied up the wife and he raped the wife. And when he raped the wife, the couple, China Rong and Song Kid, they had an 8-year-old son. So he also took the 8-year-old son, he tied this 8-year-old son up, and then he dragged him around the house, and I guess maybe he was telling him to show him where the valuables are. And this guy is just literally 8-year-old, and I guess maybe the boy is there are no valuables in the house, and he's swear to Satan that you're not hiding any money, swear to Satan that you're not hiding any money. And obviously, the boy, he did as he was told. He swore to Satan that he wasn't hiding any money. Richard left, but before Richard left, he tied the 8-year-old boy up. And after Richard had gone, the 8-year-old boy was able to break through the ties that he was tied up, and then he ran to the neighbor for help. On the 8th of August, 1985, Richard broke into the home of Sakina and Elyas. So he killed the husband instantly, and then he tied up the wife. And after this, he told the wife to swear by Satan that she was not hiding any valuables, and I guess that's what she did. After this, he took everything valuable that he found in the house and he left her. And he actually left her alive. He just fled away and then he left her alive. And then during this time, the police were just confident that they had a serial killer on the loose. But the thing is, they did not want to scare away the locals by telling them that there was a serial killer on the loose. So they were keeping everything low-key because they did not want to tell the locals, which I can get where they're coming from, but at the same time, I think you should, if that makes sense. Or maybe not say you have a serial killer. You could be like, I don't know how to put it. Maybe it could be like, there is a case where people are just dying. Just be careful of your environment and lock your doors. I think if they had said it, but the thing is, they knew they had a serial killer, but they just wanted to hide it from the public. But they wanted to hide it from the public because they did not want Richard to be aware that they were after him or they were looking into him. So they just wanted Richard to, continue doing his thing. But at the end of the day, the public safety matters, because let's not forget, in the 1980s, like most times, if you hear about stories in the 1980s, people trusted their environment, that they trusted the environment enough to open the doors at night. So, yeah, if that was the case in those times, I feel like it would make so much sense if, they are being told that there's a serial killer on the loose. I don't know, but that's my 2 cents. Anyways, even though police were trying to put this whole thing on the loose, the media, they have their way. They got a wind of the whole thing going on, and then they actually went on live and they spoke about this whole case, and they were like, you guys, there's a serial killer on the news. And this was when they gave him the name the Night Stalker. So obviously, because this was on the news, everybody, they were scared. And I said Jeffrey Dahmer. Why does Jeffrey Dahmer keep coming to my head? And Richard Ramirez, he just knew that, oh my God, the police, they found out that, oh, there's a serial killer. So he just knew at this time that he had to be more careful, because obviously, not only did he know about this case and know that, okay, the police, they were after him, he found out that the police actually had his shoe print. And when he found out that the police had found out one of his shoe prints on the crime scene, he was so scared. And maybe the media shouldn't have, said that part out. They should have said, oh, they found his shoe print. Because to be fair, that is of no use to the public at this point, if that makes sense. Especially if it's a common shoe. So the media, they were like, yeah, even the police, they have the shoe prints of the killer. And because of this, Richard, like I said earlier, he was so frantic about the whole case. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to take this shoe print and then I'm going to I'm going to throw them in the Golden Gate Bridge. So he took the shoes, and then I said, this time I'm going to take the shoe print. Oh no, I said that, but hopefully not. So anyways, Richard took the shoes and he threw them over the Golden Gate Bridge. He threw them over the Golden Gate Bridge, and after this, he drove back to Los Angeles. So let's talk about what led up to the arrest of the Night Stalker. Guys, I'm not even halfway done with my makeup, and I'm almost done with this story. That's why I say that Richard he was dumb. He was a dumbass, I'm not gonna lie. So I don't understand how you will, hear of all this case and you know that, okay, the police are after you, and you decide, okay, let me go and steal another car. So basically, that's what he did. He stole another car, and then he attempted to break into another home. So in this home, there was a 13-year-old boy and his father and his mom. He had his parents in the house. So I guess maybe he was in the living room when he heard footsteps. Of the house when he heard footsteps, and this prompted him to go and tell his parents, because at this point, the whole case of the Golden State Killer was like everyone in the news. So this prompted him to go and wake his parents up, because his parents were asleep at this point, but him, he wasn't. He was, this is why parents should let their children. I'm joking. When I say this is why parents should let their children keep late nights, but obviously I'm joking anyways. So he heard footsteps outside the house, and he went and woke his parents up. So his parents, they were like, oh my God, they were so scared because obviously at this point, the case of the Golden State Killer, I said the Golden State Killer, the case of the Night Stalker was like everywhere in the news, and the parents just assumed like, oh my days, this could be the Night Stalker, the Night Stalker. That's the Night Stalker Killer. This could be the case of the Night Stalker. So after this, they were making noise in the house. They started making noise in the house, and I guess maybe because they were making noise, this really threw Richard Ramirez off, and because this threw him off, he drove away quickly. So he ran away and he drove away. But this 30-year-old boy, he was a very smart boy, I'm not gonna lie. So he took a picture. So after Richard ran away, the 30-year-old boy, he quickly ran inside the house. He took a notepad, and then he took the make, model, and the type of car that Richard was driving in. And then I think he took like a plate number, but it was not a full plate number, just like maybe a half plate number. And then after this, he just gave the whole thing to the police. So the police, obviously, this was enough evidence to work with, but let's not forget that this car was stolen. So the police, they later found the car, and when they found the car, they found out that, okay, this car, there's a big possibility that it was stolen. So after this, they just took footprints. What am I saying? They took fingerprints that they had found in the car, and they were able to match it with Richard Ramirez. It was after they matched it with Richard Ramirez that they found out that Richard had a very long history of criminal records, a long criminal history. And this was when they believed that, oh my God, yes, we have the Night Stalker. But anyways, at this point, obviously, Richard had fled, and the police did not really know where Richard was at this point. So they held another press conference, and they went on air, and they told Richard, they told the Night Stalker, they were like, see, we know who you are. We know how to find you. You can run, but you cannot hide. Basically, they were just like threatening him because they did this because they just hoped that this was going to make him flustered and make him disorganized and discombobulated. So that's what the police actually thought was going to happen. On the 30th of August, Richard took a bus to Tucson, Arizona, and this was where his brother lived. So at this time, his brother had no idea that his brother, Richard, was involved in the crime. He didn't know that Richard, was a serial killer. He did, because I guess maybe the news was more apparent in Los Angeles. Just his brother had no idea that his younger brother was the Night Stalker. Richard did not stay too long in Arizona because he went back to California, and he took a night bus back to, is it a night bus? I really don't know. Anyways, he took a bus back to California, and on August 31st, he arrived California. And once he got up from the bus, I can imagine as he just got up from the bus, he just saw his face everywhere on the newspaper. So obviously, this just made him freak out because obviously, not only have the police found out who he is, they also know his face, and he's literally everywhere in the news. So he freaked out, and again, he tries to steal another car. Honestly, he tried to steal another car, guys. I don't understand how that's why I said he was dumb. He was a dumbass, I'm not gonna lie. Because how are you in the news? How are people looking for you? And you're trying to steal another car? Literally, you're trying to commit more crimes when they are looking for you. Ted Bundy did the same thing when he ran out of prison. So, I mean, to be fair, I don't know, anyways, freaked out, he tried to steal another car, but this was unsuccessful because there were so many people around. After this, he ran away, and then he tried to steal another car that was driving around the street. And at this time, there were a group of guys that saw him, and they were so pissed off, they were so angry, and then they attacked him. And as they were attacking him, I think they hit his head with a bar, and they called the police. So when the police came, the police now took Richard. So I'm going to talk about the trial of Richard Ramirez. Guys, I'm not even done anything to my face. So for his first court appearance, he carved a pentagram. He carved a pentagram in his palm, and then when he walked into the courtroom, he was showing people in the courtroom his pentagram, because I forgot to say he was a Satanist. I think he would have picked her up from all the all the swear by Satan he was telling people to say. So basically, I think first of all he was a Jehovah's Witness, and then he was LDS. Is it LDS? Later Days Saints. So from Jehovah's Witness to LDS, or is it LSD? Is it LSD or LDS? I think it's LDS. Oh my days! Please, someone should comment in the comment section if. Yeah, so this brings us back to the courtroom. So when he came to the courtroom, he obviously carved a pentagram in his hand. He carved a pentagram in his hand and he was screaming, "Hail Satan," as he walked into the courtroom. So the media, they were posting constant pictures of Richard, and he actually gained quite a following. People obviously all over the world, they were following the case, not only because of anything, but because, not gonna lie, even though Richard was this sick, dark, and twisted individual, he was a handsome person. And obviously, people were just so intrigued how obvious. Sometimes I used to say, I was like, oh my days, you guys are just, I would just be sitting on the bus or on the train. And I'm like, I bet you there's a serial killer sitting down beside me. Like, you literally don't know people that are like sitting down close to you. And there's a possibility that you may have sat beside a serial killer. Richard, people were just mesmerized because, first of all, this was in 1955. Now people are really more open to devil worship and their religion and things like that. But then this was like in the olden days. It's not really olden, but this was like back in the days, and it's America. So the main religion in America is definitely Christianity. So obviously at this point he's there, he carved his hands, and guys, I don't usually do my brows. I don't know why I attempted to do it and I hate it so much. So he carved his hands and he's like, "Hail Satan." And people were just mesmerized. He had so much followers, actually. And most of them were women, of course, actually. Just as we see in all these cases, he was getting like letters in prison. For women, they were actually sending him letters because obviously, but I don't understand, like, people can be so, like, how? That's definitely not the only fine man in this world. Like, how did you just fall in love with a serial killer after you know that he's a serial killer? Do you understand? Like, how do you? I don't think I would ever fall in love with a murderer, because if you're a true crime person, you would know that most of the time it doesn't go well. There's even a case that happened, I think it was in Canada, where she helped a murderer get out of prison, and she ended up with the man, and actually he killed her. So basically, I don't know. I just cannot. But obviously, people do that, and obviously, this case is an exception because people, especially women, they were literally writing him so many letters, like hundreds of letters, not like 50. Like, I can imagine, like, every day the guards will be like, "Richard, you have a letter." So different women were just writing him letters, and they not only were they writing him letters, but also visiting him in prison. So on September 30th, 1989, Richard was found guilty of all accounts. He was convicted of 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. During the penalty phase, he was sentenced to die using California's gas chambers. And I don't think they use this any longer. They don't use this any longer, but that was what he was sentenced to die with. So he sat on death row for like so many years, actually. He sat on death row for so many years. Guys, give me a second. We're almost done with this because I'm still on my makeup. This is embarrassing and I hate my brows so much. So please give me a second. On the 3rd of October 1996, Richard got married to a woman called Doreen Loy. And even though Doreen was a fan of his at the time of his trial, she used to send him letters, she used to send him fan mails, and she used to visit him in prison. She actually divorced him, and the reason why she divorced him was because she found out that he killed a 9-year-old child. And I'm like, girl, it's so weird because, okay, you found out he killed a 9-year-old girl, but is it that other people that he killed was not enough reason for you not to end up with him, because you shouldn't have even married him to start with. So as for Richard sat on death row for a long time, for like a very long time, and he sat on death row till I think he was 53 years, and that was when he died due to health complications. I think he had a heart attack. I'm not sure. Don't take my word for it. Due to his health falling apart, he actually kicked the bucket and he died. Anyways, he was not executed. I don't know why. Anyways, I don't know why they waited that long, because he sat on death row for like more than 23 years. He sat on death row for more than 23 years. So I don't know why they waited that long to kill him or to murder him or to sentence. He was sentenced to death or like to end his life, I guess. But I don't know why they waited that long. So he sat on death row for like 23 years, and that's literally everything. He died due to his health falling apart. And that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts about this case, guys. Let me know your thoughts about this case. Like, what do you think about the case? Do you think, obviously he deserves to be in prison, but I'm not gonna be surprised that there are some people that would think he didn't deserve to be in prison, but he deserved to. And do you stand with the death penalty? Before, I didn't stand with the death penalty, but sometimes look at this case and like, some people deserve to die. They deserve to die. Like, honestly, like, you should not be seeing daylight, if that makes sense. Honestly, because then again, even though you had health complications, you died based on natural occurrences or natural causes. You died based on natural causes. I wanted him to get a pound of his flesh. Like, you killed people, you shortened people's lives, so you deserve for your life to be shortened. Anyways, he still died in his own time. Did I start? Other people, they didn't get to die in their own time. That's why I wish he didn't have to wait that long. 23 years, for real. Anyways, he died, and that's the end. So guys, tell me what you think about this case. I think guys what you think about my makeup. Yeah, I think it looks much better in real life. Like, this is my second time doing this makeup because I love it so much. If you follow me on Instagram, I did makeup on my Instagram video. I lip sang to a Nicki Minaj song, Monster. I'm a Barb. Anyway, so, but guys, that's all I have for you guys today. What do you think? Do you stand with Richard Ramirez? And if you do, don't unsubscribe, because I don't need people that stand with him on my channel. Do you stand with Richard Ramirez? And what do you think? And he was a Pisces. Like, literally, Pisces, they are known to be very emotional but manipulative at the same time, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, let me just know what you guys think about this case. If this is what you like, if you guys want me to be doing like more makeup so I'll talk about true crime, let me know. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, comment on cases, drop cases, and I'm going to pick them up. And when I get enough subscribers and commenters, I'm going to open a case request form where you can drop your case request, and I'll look into it, I'll read it and execute it. But guys, that's all I have for you guys today. Kindly subscribe, like this video, comment on your thoughts about this case, and I'm going to see you guys in my next video. Until next time, bye.